in Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, the Saulteaux, Dakota, and Lakota First Nations in the homeland of the Métis. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lynn Gidluck, and this semester I have the distinct pleasure of teaching a class called Nonprofit Communications and Partnership Development for Luther College. This is one of the classes in Luther's certificate program in nonprofit sector leadership and innovation. Now, joining us today is Colleen Strau, the amazing Colleen Strau, CBC's Future 40 winner recently, the director of Luther's Nonprofit and Voluntary Sector Studies Network. Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, Luther College, for the work you do in responding to the needs of community and understanding the value experiential learning has for students. I truly never get tired of saying how much I appreciate all that you do and how privileged I am for the opportunity to serve our community through the work I am so fortunate to be able to do with you. Now, we're excited to bring community and students together for the first workshop in our Fall 2024 Growing Nonprofit Leaders series. We tried this last semester for our advocacy and community development class, and because we got good feedback, we thought we'd try it again this semester. So Colleen and I would like to thank all of you for joining us, and we would also like to give a quick shout out to the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation for their generous sponsorship of this series, which allows us to offer our speakers a small honorarium for their time and talents. Colleen and I both get really tired of begging people to do things for free. And so when we can at least offer a token amount of money to our speakers, it just makes us feel so much better. We have a nice small class this semester, 8 students from a variety of different backgrounds. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity for students to kind of rub kind of those virtual shoulders with community partners throughout the semester, learning not only from our guest speakers, but from the collective wisdom of everyone joining us from community. So once again, thank you to Luther College and to the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation for sponsoring these professional development opportunities. Please mark your calendars for Monday, October 7th, same time, same place, 10 a.m. to 11:30 on Zoom for our next session, when one of the U of R's newest professors, Evie Johnny Ruddy, is going to do a session on nonprofit video storytelling. So you can join us that morning with your smartphones ready to experiment with creating video content for your websites and social media channels. Now, if you're craving face-to-face connection, maybe to have coffee or lunch with some of the people you meet today, please join us for the Reimagining Nonprofits Conference taking place at Luther College on Friday and Saturday, October 18th and 19th. We'll stick a link in the chat so you can check out all the great sessions and activities that are lined up. Now, with no further ado, I'm very excited to introduce you to my friend, Bonnie Zink. People I know and respect refer to Bonnie as a master communicator. I've heard that phrase used a few times. And, as a whiz with words who can take the most boring, jargon-filled, and complicated academic research and transform it into plain language that kind of prompts attention, curiosity, and ultimately action. So I'm not sure who introduced us and when, but what I do know is that I was delighted when she asked me to join her advisory table for an organization she founded called KM in the AM. We can share information later about how you can sign up for the learning opportunities that this organization offers. And at the end of the session, Bonnie is going to share a link to a document that she has created in collaboration with some other people that she's been working with, which provides a host of amazing information that that will hopefully whet your appetite more to kind of jump into the fun world of Gen AI. Now, KM, for those of you that don't know, is short for knowledge mobilization. One of the phrases those in the academic world have created to refer to efforts to ensure research is shared with the right people and in formats that they can actually use to do something useful in the world. So I'm delighted for how much I've learned from Bonnie already and being able to introduce you to her today so she can share some of the wisdom and insight about how she uses Gen AI in communications and knowledge mobilization. Bonnie lives in Saskatoon, but she's gained a national reputation, and this is a new phrase that I just recently learned, a Gen AI prompt engineer. Sounds really impressive, Bonnie, which is exactly what I think of you. Now, in terms of today's, the format for today's session, Bonnie is going to make a presentation for just over half an hour. Then we're going to put you all into breakout rooms that are going to be moderated by our students. There's 4 questions, and the question that 4 different questions, and each breakout room will kind of just tackle one of these questions. And you'll have about 15 minutes in that breakout room to deal with your question. And then afterwards, we'll move you back into the main room where we'll have some report backs and an opportunity to ask some of those burning questions that we know you'll likely have. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn the table over to Bonnie and look forward to our conversations.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you to Lynn and Colleen for inviting me to be here. And thank you, Lynn, for those really highfalutin words. Now you make me nervous. Anyway, here we go. We don't have a lot of time. AI stuff always takes longer than you think when you're trying to learn it, and there'll be ample opportunity for you guys to learn hands-on afterwards as well. So yes, my name's Bonnie Zink. I, with a colleague, Fleur McQueen Smith, found that there was no training for knowledge mobilization professionals east of Ontario, or sorry, west of Ontario. Everything happened in Ontario and east, and as you know, it's hard for us in the prairies to get that far away. In the provinces out there, the plane tickets are like hugely unreasonable. So that's when we thought, we don't have it, let's create it. And we created what's known as knowledge mobilization in the morning. That's KM in the AM. We recently, this last year, went province-wide. There'll be a link at the very last slide of this presentation that you can click and sign up. Sign up is free. All of our events are free. We are just in it for sharing our knowledge and learning from other people's knowledge. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, answer in the comment section. How many of you have used AI anything that you're aware of? And what have you used? But yeah, just answer in the comment section. Yeah, ChatGPT, that's always a popular one. Okay, so ChatGPT, yeah, it is the most popular one, and it is the only AI that pledges to give access to people at all different levels. Usually they'll come out with a new version, and then the previous version is usually accessible for free. They're the only ones that I'm aware of that do that at this time. Chat Smith, interesting. What's Chat Smith, Crystal? Yeah, Grammarly, Otter. Okay, well, I've just picked 4. Like I said, it takes longer to talk about this stuff than you think. So we'll dive right in. So let's start. In the digital age, we're bombarded with an overwhelming volume of information every day. It's like drinking from a fire hose or a garden hose if you're from the 80s. And all of a sudden, this AI comes on the scene, and then you just get splashed and you drown in all of the information. So we don't really need to know how it works. We don't really need to know what happens under the hood. What we do need to know is what Lynn already mentioned, is we need to develop skills, which is called prompt engineer, and that is a real thing. That is a real job now that's come, basically, that has come from the popularity and sort of, I guess we're ready at this point in time to accept new technology. And that's what this is. So if you have busy schedules, which we all do, you learn about prompt engineering, and you will be able to do some fabulous things with generative AI. And we'll start talking about that. Well, let's start talking about that right now. So AI has the ability to now ensure that all our communications are clear, They are well thought out. They appeal to their specific audience, that they are easily understood, right? So accessibility to our knowledge is a big thing when we're doing research, or even when we're working in a nonprofit, because as you know, we need to communicate what we're all about, and doing that clearly, effectively, and, you know, making sure that everyone can understand that message is the key. Well, it's the key to, you know, making sure that your message is heard above everybody else's. So here's a little example. It's fictional, so, you know, you don't have to worry, but plain language, and I think it's plain enough nowadays that people are aware. If you're not aware of what plain language is, please do a search, because it's a very definite skill set. Plain language doesn't dumb things down. It doesn't just hack information off. It ensures that the proper message is delivered to the right people in the right way. And so they can, you know, move that knowledge into an impactful activity, you know, like creating community centers for kids who live in inner cities. I mean, AI can now help you deliver that message, and it actually can help nonprofits increase their donorship. And that's all done through plain language. So you can see this, I'm using a healthcare example here, and this is completely fictional. I actually asked ChatGPT to develop these little examples for us. A lot of this presentation has been developed in connection with the AIs that are available to me at the moment. And I'm very open and honest about it. I bring my creative flair to it after it gives me sort of a bare bones piece. So this particular piece here, you would see on a patient chart. Now, if anyone but a healthcare professional looked at
Sorry,
this.
Bonnie, we
Yeah.
can't see your presentation. It's not being shared.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hang on a sec. That's my fault. I forgot to. There we go. Better?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for reminding me. All right, so this little example, very heavy on the medical jargon. Only a doctor or a very specialized person with that knowledge would understand that. If you run this through ChatGPT, and if you're on your computer, I encourage you to give this a try. Run it through, just, you know, open a separate window, and like I said, you're getting all of this information afterwards. So if you want to, you know, do some hands-on learning, feel free. So once we run this through ChatGPT, here's what we get. We get a much more friendly version of that message. So there's a couple of things to notice. Number one, plain language makes things shorter. So if you're ever writing an essay or a grant proposal and you come across a piece that is too long, that, you know, you need to cut a certain amount of words in order for it to get through, send it through a plain language filter on either, you know, ChatGPT, or there's, you know, other editing software like Hemingway. That's a popular one. I use that one quite a lot. It actually will tell you what grade level you're talking at as well. And that can be important in some messages coming out of nonprofits, right? We want, a lot of times it's dealing with kids, so we want our kids to understand our messaging. So that's kind of, you know, it in a nutshell. You copy and paste what's on the left side of your screen into a chatbot or other piece of software, and then, you know, you get this, which is pretty fantastic. It used to take us, you know, an afternoon to translate messaging like this, because like I said, it's a very specific editing skill, and it takes time. It no longer takes this time. So does that make me obsolete? No, it doesn't. It allows me, it gives me more minutes to really focus in on, you know, strategy or the creative parts of your job, the things that you really love to do, as opposed to this more administrative stuff. So striking the balance is all of, so this slide is all about making sure that we have our message. Oh dear, excuse me. Yeah. So this slide is all about making sure that our message balances properly between easily understood and maintaining its original message. Sometimes too much detail can confuse people, so we want to be thoughtful of that. There's, a thing in plain language called white space, and it's okay if you have white space. And as you can see, again, this message is also shorter. So the things we're asking AI to do now, converting these messages, like are very specialized skill sets that not everybody, including researchers, actually have. But AI now gives them the power to do this work easily and efficiently, and actually helps them get their message across. And now they're more efficient to focus on, say it's in a survey situation and you really want to focus on data analysis. People with those skills can do that. People like me without data analysis skills can now, do some data analysis on our own to, put us in a place where where we're actually doing the work that we need to do. So now, as we move along this process, right? So we start talking about things like who our audience is. And if you want to say everybody, that is not true. Your audience is never everybody. So you really have to be sure on who that is. So what can AI help us do here? Well, AI can actually help us find that audience. It can help us by saying, I have research on topic X. Who do I need to talk to move that research into action? Who do I need to talk to engage in a plan that moves the research along after the research cycle is completed? AI can help you do that. So it can help you do that by, first of all, audience segmentation. Say you have an audience already and you want to segment that audience. And things like MailChimp are really good at this, where you can have all the government folks in one column. You can have all of your colleagues and peers in another column. You can have all of maybe sort of business contacts for fundraising in another column, right? So it's really important. And most nonprofits and other organizations do have access to tools like MailChimp, because MailChimp is, MailChimp is free to a point. The free version is pretty powerful. And then, of course, as you pay for it, it gets more powerful. But most of us only need the free version. So now we'll talk about some of the tools. There are thousands and millions of tools out there, with hundreds of more coming out each and every day. So I have put a link in this when you get the PDF of this presentation. I've actually collected over 100 tools and put them in a handy spreadsheet that you can access and take a look through and, play with them. Figure out which one works for you. So these ones are the most popular at the moment, and they are ones that I use regularly. So first up, we've got Microsoft Copilot, which nearly everybody has access to through Bing. If you are using the Edge browser, the Microsoft Copilot logo is at the very top right corner of the browser window, and that will open the access to that version of AI. So Microsoft Copilot is, if you're using the pro versions of, Microsoft 365 or Outlook, if you're using the pro versions of those, it will be embedded in there. And one of the most powerful things for me when using Microsoft Copilot in connection with an Outlook inbox is that you can have, we've all received those emails that are 800 versions long. They've got, everybody and, including the kitchen sink in them. What you can do is you can open up Microsoft Copilot and say to it, please summarize this email string and tell me what I need to do. And that, putting that prompt in, it'll scan that email and it'll say, okay, you need to send your colleague this version of this report. You need to make the contacts with these people, right? So all of the instructional components that are sent to you, not to a group, but if they're sent to you, will be itemized in number format, and you can just, tick them off as you go down, and it makes it so much easier than having to read through all of those emails, take notes, and then remember to go back. So here again, Microsoft Copilot is saving us an amazing amount of time. Here's one we've all used, and it's Grammarly. So Grammarly used to just be, as the title suggests, grammar checker. It was a alternative to using the Microsoft grammar checkers and spell checkers. So you probably are using it on your phone and you don't even know it. Predictive text is, that's what it uses. That's how it predicts what you're going to type in next. And that's not always correct. The nice thing about Grammarly now that it's gone through a few years is that, like, whether you're in crafting an email or viewing an email string or writing a report or posting on social media, Grammarly can help you make those posts and pieces of writing and do it very effectively. Now, it's not going to replace you. You still have a job to do. Microsoft especially has trouble when it comes to seeking out resources. What they want to do is they want to make you happy. They want to predict what you're thinking. They want to, carry you along down that line. But that leads them to a situation where they actually they want to do this too well. And so you get misinformation and in some cases completely wrong stuff. So you have to bring yourself to the table here and make sure that everything it's giving you is correct. Do your due diligence and you should be fine. So another popular one that I'm currently investigating in a more focused manner is Claude. So Anthropic is another company that is, at the forefront of this AI movement. So Claude excels at generating and refining content. So if you don't know what to write or where to start, Claude is pretty good at helping you figure that out. But it has this one sort of standout feature is helping you think through complex ideas. It can help you break them down, put them in more digestible chunks. You can create images off of it very easily in Claude, like flowcharts. So if you're using draw.io, you can actually give that to Gemini and it will take it from there and help you refine that image for, flowcharts or organizational models or any of sort of that visual, when you visualize data, that's what Claude's really good at. I mean, you can say, Claude, I have this PowerPoint slide. I have no idea what to put in for an image. Here's the information that I'm using, and it will generate an image, and then you can tweak it from there. So it's pretty cool way to kick your brain into a more creative mode. So Claude is also really good at taking that jargon and putting it into plain language, like we saw in earlier slides. It's really good at doing that because it can break down sort of that complex jargon into accessible language. And that's exactly the process we go through when we're trying to make our messages more clear and easily accessible. So it can also give you sort of analogies, right? So some of the models aren't real great at this yet, sort of thinking creatively. I wouldn't even call it thinking creatively, but it takes it a step beyond sort of just predicting what you want. It kind of tries to, massage that a little bit. And lastly, we'll talk about ChatGPT, which you guys have all heard about. If you have any specific questions regarding ChatGPT, you can dump them in the comment section and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And I'll ask Lynn and Colleen to sort of keep an eye on that when we get to that point. So yeah, ChatGPT is really good at taking large amounts of data, like an Excel spreadsheet where you have your donor data or your contact list, or your, you can even, if you're on LinkedIn, you can even download your LinkedIn information as a Excel spreadsheet, and you can do quite some amazing analysis on that.
Bonnie, would you
How
be
you're-
able to pop your tool list into the chat so folks can link to it?
Yeah, I will do that shortly.
Amazing, thank you.
No problem. So to summarize, these are some of the big tools that are out there. Like I said, there's hundreds and hundreds more. So if you're using something that I didn't mention, also pop that in the chat, and we can discuss that as well.
There was one other question actually that Neil asked, which was, do you have to be using Outlook for your email to use Copilot?
No, you don't actually. So if you have a Windows machine, there is a Copilot app that you can download into your Windows machine. And again, there's apps for all the phones as well for all of these. And if you have your page open to the email that you want to work with, you can actually still use Copilot to do that. Now, if you're using Gmail, Gemini is Google's version, and it has some nifty features. It's pretty new, so it's kind of got a lot of bugs, but it does pretty well if you're, trying to work through some of the examples that we've already said. So Gemini is already built into the Google ecosystem, the same as Copilot is built into the Microsoft ecosystem. So here's some examples of more geared toward nonprofits. So, if you have any specific questions on this, again, just let me know. And Colleen will break in like she just did. That was perfect. Okay, so ChatGPT, again, is the one we all know about. But it can help you, do email campaigns. You can do donor campaigns through email or text and actually have the responses and everything put into formats that you need to relay to your boards or staff members or anyone else. And you can track your grants. You can have it actually create sort of that first draft. And where a lot of academics that I know personally right now are using this to its full is that they will get through the whole grant, then they will take and edit it in one of the large language models. Now, before you go to that step, and some of this information is not de-identified, you need to be sure that you're following your organization's policies. The U of S just came out with some really great policies, and Canada has some guidelines, and the EU has some really great guidelines. So keep those in mind as you're doing this. So if you're doing a lot of health data, you probably don't want to feed that into ChatGPT, which may then be used to train other models. And that's kind of where we're at with the progression of all these things, is figuring out what we can and can't do. Or sorry, not what we should and should not do. So next, if you want to do up like major email campaigns, ChatGPT can take you through from the inception, that idea of what that campaign will do, what you're going to accomplish. It will help you develop surveys. It will help you develop signage. It can help you translate signage and emails into another language. Say if you're, dealing with a community that only speaks German, or a community that only speaks Cree, or a community that only speaks, you name the language, ChatGPT can help you translate your message into that language, which can be pretty powerful. So you can also structure your grant proposal, right? So, working with the guidelines you get from the grant agency, you can actually have ChatGPT read that document, read your document, and then ask it, say, have I created everything I need to create to meet the requirements of this granting agencies. Because sometimes we miss small things, you know, like maybe we need a support letter from a community organization. You can now draft that support letter, send it to the person that you want to endorse your research, have them sign off and bring it back, and ChatGPT will help you incorporate that letter right into the exact place it needs to be. So you can see now we're starting to take a lot of things off of our tables when we're working with documents, right? The drafting, the editing process, the making sure we have everything addressed that we need to have addressed. And it does it in a very fast and efficient way. So where do you come in? Now you come in and you bring your creative spark, your human experience, your knowledge to the page that ChatGPT has given you. You always, always, always have to edit everything it gives you. And as you work with these tools more, you will find that the knowledge is in your head and you can actually get it out faster and onto the page in that email sent than any AI can do it for you. And that just comes with, you know, practicing and writing these things. Make sure that you don't give too much to the AI to do. Keep the things you love to do for yourself. So again, we can do social media posts. If you see an article on LinkedIn that says something that you know addresses a topic that you're working in, you take the URL to that, you give it to ChatGPT, or you use, if you have professional version of LinkedIn, they have their own onboard AI that's really powerful. So you can ask it to give me, say, the top five important points in this research or article, and provide me with LinkedIn text so I can share this article with my thoughts. But before you develop that, you want to ask the AI to make sure that your facts are right, to make sure that it gives it to you in the proper format. And then you can just copy and paste and put it into LinkedIn or wherever, you know, whatever social media you're going towards, and then press send, right? So you've already shaved probably 5 to 10 minutes off a process that would have taken you a lot, you know, a lot longer than this. So you've got it summarizing the article, you've got it developing your copy, and then all you do is you read it through, make your adjustments, and press send. And I think that in itself, I've found to be the most time-saving part in my day, right? So, but none of them are very good at giving you things like actual sources. They like I mentioned before, they do make it up, and you do not want to get caught in that, because you have to bring your eye and edit everything, because there is no software out there that can detect with any amount of accuracy if people are using AI or not when they're developing content. You need to be honest and upfront about that. I mean, it's another tool, just like the internet. Find where it works best for you, and then, you know, go from there. But be honest that you're using it, and you will find some of your students will find, as you deal with more and more journal publications, each of the big ones has their own version of the guidelines and requirements when it comes to using AI in the stuff you're submitting for publication.
On that, sorry, Bonnie, on that
Yeah.
note, because it's kind of connected here. Karen asked the question, the risks of using these tools and content being digested and kind of reused by these tools. Would you, perhaps that may be coming later, but just wanted to let you know that that question came into the chat.
Yeah, I've got a few things on that later, so not too far from now. But we talked about the document use a little bit earlier. And don't worry, I've got a lot of information in the notes section that will come along with the slides. And you'll be able to sort of study those and go through in a lot more detail. Because the best practices, and Karen, your question is addressed here. So when you're using these tools, again, you need to be very mindful. And part of that process is developing your goals. right? So you've all used SMART goals and this sort of thing, learning plans, work plans, that sort of thing. Those are all, you know, goal-oriented things. Now, we can use AI to kind of skip ahead with some of those processes, but, you know, you want to start with clear objectives. You want to tell the AI what you want and be clear about what you want. And that's where prompt engineering comes in. And there's certain ways we can do that, mostly by using clear language. And in the handbook that will be delivered to you after this, there are 3 of the major sort of systems, organizational systems that we can use to develop some of these prompts in a more effective way, which is really important because if you're only using the free versions, you do only have a certain amount of questions you can ask. And then Gemini will say, well, you can now not use me until after 4 p.m. Right, so it sort of resets you. So having everything clearly put in a prompt is pretty powerful when it comes to using some of these sources, some of these AIs in a more efficient way. There's a couple of tools that are really, really great at using research, and you'll see that on the slide. So Elicit will help you analyze whatever your data set is. It's really good at that. Scribe is really good for, you know, simplifying and plain languaging content. PaperPal is one that's geared specifically towards academic research. So it, you know, even though I said it doesn't find sources really well, this one does. PaperPal does. There is a free version of all of these things. However, if you want to, you know, something like PaperPal, if you're doing a lot of academic writing, it's worth the $20 a month. And then again, you know, there's ChatGPT. So crafting effective AI prompts, we mentioned that a little bit already. Here's an example for you that you can, you know, take away later and sort of think about how you can, right? So instead of saying, tell me, give it a really specific action or use your action verbs. It loves to be able to follow instructions. So the more information you give it, the better. And some prompts can range from, you know, they're 2 sentences long to paragraphs, right? There can be 3 or 4 paragraphs, depending on what you want to do with this, you know, with your content. So you can experiment, find a research paper online, find a published journal, and take some of those and have Microsoft Copilot up in the Edge browser and ask it to do a bunch of things with that content. Now, then you can really see why, you know, it's really important to disclose that you're using AI and whatever it is that you're using it for. And that comes in also with creating those effective prompts. And it takes practice. You won't get it right the first time, but that's where my handbook will help you. So another thing we want to consider here is bias. There is bias embedded in AI, and that we do not want that, especially as researchers. We do not want bias embedded in our projects simply because it renders it useless, especially in today's day and age. Again, bias can, you know, it can perpetuate inequalities. It can, you know, really fight against what you're trying to achieve because the wrong message will be received. So when you're reading the content that AI has given you, make sure you read it through for any inherent bias. You can start by sort of evaluating your AI outputs, and here's some practical steps that I'll give you. Number 1 is regular reviews of what it's giving you. So you read it very, very carefully, have other people read it who maybe could read it from a different perspective. You want to incorporate, you want to encourage users of that generated content after you release it to give you feedback on it. You know, what's their perspective? How does it land with them? Are they getting the clear message? You also want to measure some performance metrics to make sure that what you're using and how you're using it is really working well for you, or is it working against you? Like with any other communication, you know, you can take a communications lens and then clean up your content that way. And sometimes that might mean bringing in another person. Like I said, AI is not going to get everything right all the time. So if it's a very popular donor website, you want to make sure it's as best as it can be. You can feed it through AI first, but always get a human set of eyes on it before you make it publishable. So another pitfall and things we can get tripped up on is just like with social media that we've already seen, AI can also perpetuate misinformation, and you really want to be careful there that you're not sending out something that has the wrong message. AI can help you develop that message, and to a point, it can help you figure out if that message is, biased or this or that. But again, always, I know I sound like a broken record, but some people don't get the message. It's human eyes always. Like, the AI it can't replicate or predict your particular brand of communication. It can't figure out how to creatively take your idea and go somewhere else with it. Those are human jobs that will never be replaced by AI. The one caution here, though, is that even though, yes, it's not going to replace you, however, someone else who knows how to use AI very well in what they produce and what they bring to the table, they could sneak in and take your job because they are using AI effectively. So just keep that in mind when you're playing around with all of these things. Again, so some of the mitigation strategies to, dealing with this is just regularly auditing and reviewing and tracking and measuring what you're doing. You want to incorporate feedback loops into any of the communication that you're putting out there. And that's how most folks who are working in communications do it. So it is the last eyes, but communication, like if I was producing an annual report, you bet I'd use AI as much as I could to cut down on that process, because I love the editing process. So I would, get over the first part of that process and get to the good stuff that I like to do and that I'm really good at. And that's where, AI can fit in that process, yes, but it can't do it all for me, because I know how to creatively take a nonprofit, very dry, very boring message and putting it, using a little marketing copy and some techniques to make it brilliant and really resonate with folks that it's being delivered to. So I hope you can see so far that, it's not just all about getting things done with AI and having it save your time and this and that. It's still in its infancy. And so each of us who use it, keep in mind, develop those case studies for yourself on how people are using it, how it's effective, and how it will work within your own organization. So privacy concerns, and this is huge, and much bigger of a topic than we will effectively address here today. However, there are bigger brains than mine out there figuring all of this stuff out. So AI tools, they can collect and analyze your personal data. They're raising privacy concerns because of that. What are you clear in what you're sending out there into the ecoverse of digital heaven? Is it material that needs to be kept private? Are there HIPAA violations? Are there PIPEDA violations? Like, are you violating your own organization's policies around using AI? We had these same conversations 20 years ago when social media was coming onto the scene. These exact same conversations were happening then as are now about AI. A lot of folks, and rightly so, are worried about copyright infringement. Because like I said, there is no tool that can effectively discover if you've used AI in your copy, but there are tools that will catch plagiarism. And that's a big question now, is using AI, is that a form of plagiarism? As far as I'm aware today, there is no answer on that yet, but that is something you should keep in mind, because you can ask AI to Say, write me a short story in Edgar Allan Poe's style about Halloween that's coming up soon. You could have it create an entire story about that. And so because it's trained on things that already exist on the internet, does that equal plagiarism? And how, and if yes, then how do we properly source and cite that information? Those are just questions that I want you to keep in mind as you play through. And I do encourage you to play with all of these and make them work for yourself. So again, copyright and intellectual property. This is, like I said, this is a big issue. So here's another slide for you to consider about that issue. And everything you do with AI, always, always remember, it's not human, but you can talk to it like it is human. Think of it as kind of your assistant who is going to make lots of mistakes. So we're with the cautionary tales, the cautionary notes I want you to consider, because I want you to be safe in using this. I want you to use this well. Our little raccoon friend here is reminding us to take our steps cautiously, be well prepared. Here's the last slide for you that I went through some of this really quickly because I do want to leave lots of time for discussion with you folks. You'll see the KM and the AM URL at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of, sorry, this page. There we go. So that's all of my information. I want you to talk to me. I want you to tell me what you found useful, what you found didn't useful. Right now, I want you to tell me in the chat, what do you want to talk about? This is your opportunity to pick my brain, and but I want to know what you want to talk about. And we'll go back and we'll hit some of the more key issues. So Colleen, if you wouldn't mind continuing to read those things, read the questions out as they come in, I'd be ever so grateful.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'll just keep talking.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions that we
Okay.
have for now.
Then we can go back and address a couple more things here. Just a second. Let's talk a little bit more about crafting those. Oh, here's one from Kara. Well, we'll talk about grant submissions. So grant submissions, and I've written many of those as long as they're the same in the nonprofit world as they are in the academic world. What we need to, in Canada, most of the grants that we write go to organizations that are funded with public money. So everything we do right from submission of that grant needs to be in step with the guidelines of the granting agency, but also the guidelines of your own organization. And that's an important step. So you can use AI to help you understand those things. So you can take your organization's guidelines in a PDF, and the PDF of the web page or guidelines that you've received from your granting agency and PDF them. You can upload them into ChatGPT. You tell ChatGPT to read them and find anything that's different, and it will come up with a list of things that, you know, in your guidelines from your organizations and the guidelines from the granting agencies that you need to really be aware of and that really need a focus in your grant application. So instead of you're still going I would suggest you still read both. But once you PDF them, it's a set of data to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT loves data, you know, to play with it. And it loves to, I guess, help you come up with more insights than you may have come up with on your own. So that's going to help you write a better grant submission. So once you find out those differences in ChatGPT, I usually take them and then just do the writing, but not everybody's a writer, and ChatGPT can help you with instead of using placeholder you know, the lorem ipsum placeholder copy that's out there. You can now generate your own copy that you can send to your next person for approval or to see what you missed. But as you can see, ChatGPT can get you to that point, and in a lot quicker of a time than sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. What was I going? Oh, with grant writing, yeah. Being honest about using AI. That's right. And you'll see in the handbook that I gave you, that I'm going to give you, in the back, in the appendices, absolutely everything is documented. I keep track of, when I'm writing, I keep track of, I have an open document somewhere that I keep track of all the things that I've looked at or that I've sourced in my writing, right? But now I want to add to that appendix. We don't just need a works cited page anymore. We need a AI used page. Keep track of all of your prompts, everything you feed into it, keep track of it, because if somebody comes back to you, even in a year's time, and says, I don't know, this paper is pretty wonky. It sounds like it was, you know, created with AI or this or that. You can now show them your process and that it wasn't created by AI, because the final product is created by you and you're directing AI. And in some cases, it's no different than using a student intern to do some of this work. But now we are, you know, doing it with AI as our student intern. And you know what, when you're writing those grant applications, you should disclose it. But again, go back to the guidelines that are at the granting institution, Kara or Kate, and then go from there. So some of the main benefits of ChatGPT and all of the other versions. So ChatGPT, like I mentioned, is the only one that has really good access for free, and it's the previous version. So I think we're on version 4. You get to use version 3.5 in perpetuity. It doesn't have some of the bells and whistles, but honestly, you don't need them. You get a limited amount of documents that you can upload to ChatGPT. You can get around that in some of the shorter documents, like guidelines. You could just copy and paste and put it into ChatGPT that way, and it will still do everything that you're asking it to. When you're doing prompts, and that we finally found a use for the squiggly parentheses, which on your keyboard are right above the block parentheses, the 2 squared ones. If you put something inside those squiggly parentheses, ChatGPT knows to go to that specific piece of information. So if we were summarizing a document off the internet and we take the URL or the document in full and plug it in, we would, as we're doing our prompts, we would put inside the name of that piece of content. So if it was a PDF about guidelines, you can say, please review this PDF of guidelines, and PDF of guidelines would be inside those squiggly parentheses. Now, every time you mention those guidelines in the rest of your prompt, ChatGPT can go back and say, oh, this is the piece that they're talking about. This is the piece I need to focus on. And which is pretty powerful, because if you get 2 or 3 documents uploading at the same time on, you know, different things you want to do, ChatGPT can keep it all straight. You no longer have to, and now you can be the creator instead of the, you know, the editor, which is it's a lot of fun when you do things like that. And all of the major ones that we're talking about here today do have that functionality, but all of them have different things that they layer on as you pay for it. Now, there is a cost to a lot of these material, or to a lot of these tools, and they are not worth the cost. I would say you don't need to buy ChatGPT access at this point, because you get so much functionality in what they give you for free. Some of the other tools like Perplexity, which is geared toward academics, you do need to pay for those, because you get, it really will kick up your writing in an academic setting, and it's worth it. And it's one of the less costly. So most of these are as you know, everything on the internet is going subscription based, so it's, a lot of them are $20 a month, which is a little pricey. But a lot of organizations will already give you access. So the U of S here in Saskatoon actually gives you access within the Microsoft enterprise that they have. So, you know, like that's Office 365 and Word and all of those things. And Microsoft Copilot is also built into those. So people working at USask will have access to those.
Bonnie, there's one question here actually from Lynn, who is wondering the main benefits of the paid version of ChatGPT versus the free one, and is, in your opinion, the cost worth the upgrade?
Again, Lynn, it just, it depends on what you want to do with it, what you're trying to do. So if you were working in a communications role within a organization, let's say a small sort of mom and pop organization that has, part of its service is providing knitted and warm pieces of clothing for the winter for homeless people. You can use ChatGPT in its free version to answer all the questions you're going to have about what do I develop? What are the, you can ask ChatGPT to develop, or tell me what to develop. Give me a list of communications products that will help me get to this goal. And it will give you a list and tell you what those are. Then you can take each of those, each point on that list, and also ask ChatGPT to tell you more about it, right? So think about these things as a conversation. You're not, it's not like Google search where you're just telling it, I need information on this topic. In AI, you're actually having a conversation with another machine, and which is really good at picking out what you want it to do. So now you just keep going back and forth until you get the document that you want, or, you know, the analysis that you want. I found, so I'm a writer, my background is writing. So in my case, I have found the data analysis capabilities of ChatGPT and other AIs to be especially beneficial. I have found it that I use it to edit almost everything that I write. And in some cases, it goes to a committee for approval, or, you know, it goes to someone else to add another layer. So before I send it on, I don't want, you know, the occasional typo, and I don't want, you know, unclear language. I don't want to use, say, the passive voice. I don't want to use, say, semicolons. So I will take, and ChatGPT will take all of that out and give me a new version that is clean and shiny and probably still not ready to go. I still got to read it, and then I'll send it. Once I approve it from ChatGPT, I send it on. And I teach that person how to use ChatGPT to even take it a little further. There's a lot of possibility. It's still too new for, you know, there's academics doing live research on data from people who do use these tools. I can tell you, I'll be very honest, writers are afraid of these tools. Not me, I actually embrace it, but other writers, creative writers now think, okay, well, if everybody can write with ChatGPT, what's my role? Yes, ChatGPT can write. It can create songs, it can create music, it can create poetry, it can create, but you know, none of that has the human spirit in it. And so if you ask it to create a 4-line poem, it will create 4 lines that rhyme, but it's not going to be specific to your experience, right? You're going to have to take that starter poem and make it into something good. It's just like you take your copy and make it into something that really speaks to that government official that you need on side in order to push through, say, legislation about topic X. It needs you. And I know I've said that a lot, but I really want you to understand it does need you. Don't ever take what AI gives you and use it. You're not going to get anywhere that you want to get by doing that. It's as big of an issue as plagiarizing, right? And we've all heard the horror stories around plagiarism. I mean, people can get kicked out of ever taking a university course again. So yeah, Lynn, don't buy it. You don't need to, not right now. Gemini is one that doesn't give you a lot of functionality for the free version. Grammarly, you don't need to really buy that either, unless you really want to focus on improving your writing. And most of us don't need quite that much focus. I wouldn't buy it either. The free version is perfectly fine. So where are we headed in the future for these things? I mean, AI is not going away. It will not be put back in its box. So what do we do? Because we still want quality copy and we still want things to happen. So what do we do? Well, we teach people how to use these tools, and we teach them how to use them responsibly, ethically, and properly, right? So when we tell our students, here's an exercise, go off to your favorite AI and, I don't know, write a briefing note. And AI will do that, but the briefing note isn't going to be good. And as you read through it, you will discover that it isn't good. So do writers still have a place? Yes, we do, because we need to take what AI gives us and make it into something that you as a reader are going to either be persuaded by, be educated by, or be entertained by. AI just doesn't take it that far. And as you saw earlier, we've got, people who have specialized knowledge, and what you're used to, who you're used to communicating to is how you write. And that may not always be appropriate when addressing other communities. AI can also help you there, but again, you need to go in and you need to put those nuances in there. AI can't can't insert your personal experience into a story. You have to do that. That's your job. So yeah, where is it headed in the future? I think we're going to get more and more reliant upon AI. I don't think it's going to slow down. It is going to get regulated. Right now, there's not a lot of regulations, but you can go and I have a list of resources that's in the slides as well for you that outlines, gives you the links of where to go for some of these guidelines. So like I said, it's just as important for a nonprofit, a small nonprofit, to have guidelines around AI use and digital use in general, as it is for, a huge, big, well, say one of the universities. And all of our universities in Canada do have guidelines in place about using AI. And the more transparent you are about using it, the better off you will be. And it will help you do a better job. It will save you time during the day. Once you get over the initial learning curve, you will save time. Things like the handbook that I wrote used to take months, years to write something like that, which now takes an afternoon to get a first draft. So there's huge time-saving opportunities here. So I encourage you, first of all, to use it. Find your favorites. Start with the ones that are here that we talked about today. You can start with those and then take it a step further. If you find ones that aren't in my list, and I will drop that in there. When we get to the next section, I will drop that in there. So I think we wanted to move into breakout rooms where each room will have a topic of conversation. Make sure you jot your questions down. And if you go away after today and you're sitting at your desk and trying to incorporate some of these into your own personal workflows and a question arises, you have my email. I'm open to being asked questions whenever you need. I just love this stuff so much, and I want you to use it, and I want you to have a fantastic experience. So I am here to answer your questions. Colleen, I'll toss it back to you.
Awesome. Well, I have the breakout rooms all ready. So unless anyone else has a burning question right now, I'll open up the rooms, and the students will be the hosts, and we have the questions to guide the breakout room conversations. But of course, if there is kind of the natural flow, feel free to kind of follow that as well. And just John is asking Bonnie about the link to the tools. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
I'm looking it up right now and I'll dump it in the chat.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'll just send everyone out to their breakout rooms. And Lynn, what time do you want people to come back? Oh, sorry, you're on mute too.
Bonnie,
We need like an
minutes?
AI unmute button.
How does 15 minutes sound, Bonnie? Is that gonna be enough? Yeah, okay.
Perfect. Alrighty. We'll see you in 15 minutes then.
Sick. Well, we don't have a lot of time left, so do we want to just start by having group one do just a quick report back on what your conversation was like?
Sure, yeah. So my group, we had some good discussion. Ultimately, we kind of ended up with more questions than answers. One of which was talking about what the data sets our tools are using, and are they all using similar data sets? Because we're talking about bias, and if it's learning from the internet, when we use the internet on a day-to-day basis, we already kind of have a filter making sure that we're aware that some people are out there trying to spread misinformation. So are these tools learning from that as well? Or yeah, our question was about using it with bias. So that I would say that was our main thing.
And you know what? The bias is a huge issue. And that's why we need our human eyes. Because whatever discipline you're working in or whatever job you're working in, you're going to be aware of the biases that happen in that area. The chatbots aren't good at spotting it, right? So if there is something terrible being spoken about on the internet, in more so than another subject, that subject is going to be used to train your chatbot on. It's going to base its predictive formula on whatever's more popular. And they're all trained on something slightly different, but they're all trained, they all have access to some of the big ones. So DALL-E, so that's a DALL-E, is it's an AI that creates images. And so it also opens up the questions of, if I ask it to create a picture in the style of, select your favorite photographer, can it do that for me? Well, yes, it can if that picture exists on the internet. It doesn't always get it right. If you ask it to, if you ask it to show you a horse, it's going to show you the most popular horse of the day. And if you start trying to work with that image, it's going to come up with really wonky things. And you're going to start noticing it's really bad at producing hands. I don't know why, but hands never come out properly when you're using some of these image generation tools. But it's fun to try.
Now, how about we go to group two, and this is speaking more specifically to AI tools and protecting of personal data and complying with privacy laws. Let's hear a little bit about your discussion.
So we asked our group about what their thoughts on the privacy were, and a lot of them said not to put personal information into the program. And then I asked Don a little more about cybersecurity, because he said he was part of a former cybersecurity personnel, and he explained that AI itself is kind of becoming more of a tool for, I guess, criminals, and how other organizations need to find more accountability to be able to use it to counter that, so but people to keep people safe and stuff.
Yeah, and James, those are all really great points. I'm glad you mentioned some of those. We have to be careful. With every step forward, we have the opportunity to step on a landmine, it seems, in the digital world. And this is another place where we do need to be careful. It's exciting, it's moving quickly, things change on an hourly basis in the AI world right now, because it's kind of like, you know, the big companies want to get your eyes on their apps. But being really aware of what you're inputting, so you can read the guidelines of the app you're using and it will tell you. Not many of us want to read all of that legalese. So just, you know, go in and pretend that, you know, that you're presenting something to a room full of people that you respect. If it's not something you want them to know, don't send it out there. Now, that said, Microsoft Copilot, I've found, has the best security at the moment. When there's an enterprise subscription, like at the U of S, Microsoft Copilot it does not send any data you input into it on the if you have the pro version to train other AIs. It doesn't do that. Now, the drawback of that is that you can't really save your chats. You can't save your discussions, but Microsoft Copilot makes it really easy. There's a little button that you click and it dumps it into a Word 365 document, so you can save it that way. And there's a lot of fear about misusing our data. Just be smart. Don't be scared, be smart. And like I said, go back to some of those guidelines that you should be using anyway regarding your digital activity. And this is just another chapter that goes on top of it.
Fantastic. Now, group number 3, you talked about the how do you trust the reliability of AI, and who is accountable for errors? What's a brief kind of summary from you guys?
Hi, everyone. I think our student facilitator's gone because she had to run to class. We just talked about, like, at the end of the day, it's the human using it that's responsible for errors. And we talked about too, like, if we're an editor or something, or we are accepting like submissions that we are then publishing, that it really creates a can of worms that we need to make sure that any of the submissions we're receiving aren't full of errors from artificial intelligence. So at the end of the day, it's humans submitting and humans reviewing that are accountable for the writing that we are putting out there. And the first part of the question of, like, how do you ensure that there isn't errors in it? You really can't. And we see lots that a lot of the artificial intelligence is making up resources and can't even get the journal article right that something is coming from. So to just really be aware of that, and there's less chance of error if we are putting in the original text and just simply giving the command for it to be put into plain language, or, you know, whatever the command is. But if the original writing is ours, there's less chance for error.
Yeah, and you're so right there, Bonnie. Nice name, by the way. Just like we've talked about already, being aware that these pitfalls exist will help you avoid falling in. So when we're talking about privacy, and when we're talking about plagiarism, when we're talking about any of those things that on the internet today, and when we're talking about, I mean, don't forget, social media went through this, the internet itself, we went through a distrust period. And no, you should never take, whether it's coming from human or from a digital source, never take it at face value. Always ask the questions and do your due diligence. That's what will keep you safe. Because it does happen. There's all sorts of examples out there that all you have to do is do a quick Google search and you'll find some pretty hilarious things. But when we're communicating from a spot of expertise, like whether it's on behalf of an organization, of a nonprofit, or it's on behalf of yourself as a student, you want to be open and honest with what you're using to create everything, but you also want to be careful, and you don't have to well, you never should leave it stand as face value. If it gives you a mission statement and that mission statement will probably miss several steps that your organization needs to take to get to a certain goal. And then being aware of the values and those goals, all those three things together make it, I mean, there's some human creativity that goes into that makes those messages resonate with us. I happen to have a lot of family members that experience severe mental health challenges. So, you know, I talk about that a lot. And sometimes I use AI to find, you know, to outline a letter to the editor or some other piece of writing I want to work on. I'll use it to outline that and then bring my brain to it and go through it. And if I'm struggling with a section, say, you know, this paragraph doesn't sound right, please rephrase. And it will rephrase it, and I'll go through a couple iterations of that. And eventually I will get to a place where, aha, it just unblocked my brain. Now I can write it. So you can use it as a tool that way to spur on your own creativity. But ultimately, what you put out there, you are responsible for. And as we've seen in the past, you know, the internet is not kind to people who make mistakes. You know, big mistakes. And I mean, it can mean some pretty big consequences if you're making those kind of mistakes. So again, just be aware and make sure your practices always have a review process in place. And most of us don't put stuff on our nonprofit web pages just ourselves. I mean, it goes through several layers of people, including the board itself, to make sure our messaging is right. But you as a communications consultant say, you can use AI to come up with that stuff, and then it will go through the process and it will be okay in the end, because now we're aware of it.
Now, just really quickly for our last question before we send you off for the rest of your day, group 4 talked about the affordability options and specifically for nonprofit needs.
All right, I can touch on this. So our discussion had quite a bit of overlap with other groups. We started out by discussing how AI can be scary, can be used as a weapon. How can we trust it? Maybe people consider it a shortcut and don't think about the repercussions. But Bonnie made a good point, and she said that AI should never be referred to as a shortcut, but rather it's a complementary tool, because essentially we need human beings to use it. Like any new system or technology, it takes time. We have to spend effort and resources navigating it to feel more comfortable, and I guess discover how we can use it effectively and how it can cater specifically to your organization. Also liked Bonnie said in our discussion that AI is not going away. So at this point, you know, we should be trying to embrace it and work through it. As for affordability for nonprofits, TechSoup Canada, Bonnie said, and this is an organization that connects nonprofits, charities, and libraries to discounted software. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, Bonnie mentioned Grammarly, and you made a good point about saying that for a lot of these programs, you can use the free version, and you should always try that before buying and investing in a paid version. Anything you'd like to add to that, Bonnie?
Well, it sounds like everybody had like fantastic conversations. I'm glad that you did. I know we're a little bit over our time. So unless there's any other last kind of burning questions, I know I'm very grateful for Bonnie for your presentation and your for having done so much already for people in Saskatchewan. The work that you've done, even just compiling your manual, which we're gonna, I believe, share with everybody. after this. Everybody will get an email, including the people that registered and weren't able to come, with these links. So if you're worried about kind of getting this, don't worry. We'll send tomorrow likely, or even later today, you'll get an email with all this in it. But without further ado, I'm gonna just thank everybody. Thank Colleen for helping to moderate, but especially Bonnie for your wonderful generosity and sharing all these resources with us. I think I hope everybody is going away as excited as I am to start playing around on some of these new tools.